it's set for me, community and collaboration, and people that I can create with is such a measurement of optimal health and like how I feel successful these days. Like it used to be before where, I want a Grammy, like that will be success. And now it's like,
Did you actually win a Grammy?
no, not yet. One day. I still haven't given up on that dream or that goal or whatever. But I'm just saying like something like that, like, or looking at other people winning the Olympics, like whatever it is, like that's, that was always kind of how I viewed success. But now the level of optimal health is sort of in direct proportion to, and by the way, optimal health to me means success. So like that's in direct proportion to like, how much community do I have around me? How many like valuable people in terms of friendships do I have in my life versus just someone who I'm just doing business with, or just, I mean, whatever it is, right? Like, what are the friendships like? Like, what's the quality of the friendships? And yeah, is there a community there?
Well, yeah. And it's, the world is so connected virtually and electronically now.
Mm-hmm.
But, and you and I had a really great conversation on the phone last week about, mental health.
Yeah.
And like what we were just talking about before we started today was when we were growing up, when everyone was growing up back in, the 80s and even the early 90s, we didn't have the opportunity to compare ourselves through as many vehicles as we do today. Like I could have compared myself to guys who are, taller, or that I thought were more good looking, or their parents had more money, or they scored more goals in lacrosse than I did, or someone got better grades, like normal stuff.
Yeah.
And now we have all these comparison machines, which are what are referred to as social media.
Right. And it's in our hands. Like it used to be on billboards and in magazines. And, it's just that now media it's highlighting not just movie stars, but people in your real life. And there's comparison towards them and people and celebrities, and it's in your hand and it's in magazines, like it's everywhere now. So, I mean, I think like the degree at which we can feel lonely has definitely jacked itself up.
Well, yeah. And that raises a really important point. While the world is connected electronically, the level of depression, anxiety, discontent they're skyrocketing year to year. And the statistic that got me, that we had a long talk about the other day, was the statistic specifically here in Canada around what CAMH just reported after their big donation that they received of $100 million. That 6.7 million Canadians deal with mental health.
And that's just what's reported. And I think that the beautiful thing is the mental health community is working really, really hard to end the stigma. Like Bell Let's Talk, that's what their whole campaign is about, because the stigma is what gets people to not talk, which gets people to, be isolated, which then causes death. And so there's more talk about this now, which is then allowing people to feel like they have the safety to report these mental illnesses now. So we are seeing like bigger results and more people come forward with depression, but it's hard to say whether it's always been there or whether it's just growing, because we don't know if it's just that people are reporting it more or if it's growing. I definitely think it's probably both. And what I always say is like, we're turning, like our addictions are turning into phone addictions and tech addictions and things that you're like on Instagram and text and whatever, because what we're really missing is real life connection. But the problem is that we're seeking that connection in our phones, and that's just disconnecting us more from the world around us, the real world.
Well, exactly. And that's like, if you really look at the mental health, and we'll get into this in a few minutes. You've dealt with your own battles. I've dealt with my own battles. People watching this and listening to this have dealt with their own battles. And I take a very existential view on mental health. Not that it's not a problem, and not that depression and anxiety don't exist. And where I stand is that we can all transcend and transform whatever we're actually dealing with, which is called mental health. right? Which is very distinct because it gives people and myself their own power back to actually
Right.
go and be able to resolve, to read books, do courses, go to therapy, do meditation, all of these different practices. And, you know, I'd love for you to share an opportunity where, you know, you've been caught in that world. You've been comparing yourself. You've been, you know, in the mud, or what you would call depression or anxious or something of that nature, and what you actually did
Yeah.
to work through it.
Yeah, I think that's a really great topic. I think the biggest thing for me was coming to the realization that I needed to redefine what success or productivity meant. When I wasn't depressed and when things were going well and I was crushing it, my version of looking like the hero of my life was different than when I was depressed and what being the hero meant then. So, for example, being the hero when you're crushing it and you're feeling good looks like attending 10 meetings a day, working out in the morning and at night. Like, I mean, whatever, you look like you're crushing it, right?
Yep.
Like, need I say more? But when you're in a place of depression, which is a real thing, and let me just like define the difference for a second between depression and sadness. When you're sad about something. When you're depressed, depression is the thing. So when you're in that place, because that's a little bit different than kind of being able to go like, okay, I'm sad about this thing. I'm realizing that I'm sad about this thing. Like, let me adjust that. Depression is the thing, and that's a whole other ball game to kind of work through. And same with anxiety and stress. The exact same theory applies. You get stressed about something, anxiety is the thing. And that was what I was dealing with. So when I was in those places, I had to really take a step back, and this is like sort of you know, taking ego out of the picture and just sort of saying like, today, if I get up and I write my journal and I am able to nourish myself, like I'm able to eat a meal and I'm able to go for a walk and I'm able to have a nice conversation with one person, then I've won my day. I'm a hero today, at this point in my life. So redefining the meaning of success and productivity, depending on where you are in the continuum of mental health, is, I feel, one of the most important things that you can do for yourself to kind of start to climb out of the hole or the mud pit. And part of that is because if all you're doing is comparing yourself to how you used to be, or comparing yourself to someone else and where they are in their continuum, then you're just shaming yourself. And shame is probably the worst thing and the worst feeling that you can feel while you're dealing with in general, but especially while you're dealing with a mental illness. It just keeps you down. It keeps you in that place.
Well, yeah. And on that point, when you actually shifted yourself from that place to a place of, you know, you feeling happy and content and fulfilled.
Yeah.
What was the actual practice in your life that you put in to support you for you to create that shift?
Yeah. Another huge question. It's a multi-pronged approach. It's a malleable multi-pronged approach. So when I say malleable, I mean it changes, it's ever changing for you. Like one day it might look like one thing, the next day it might look like another thing. It looks different from you compared to another person. And it's multi-pronged. It's not just one thing. So for me, and this is a lot of what I offer in my performance mindset program, for me, it was journaling. It was meditation. It was understanding my breath at a more intrinsic level. It was breathing exercises. It was mindfulness, really building self-awareness. Like self-awareness is one of the biggest mitigators for suffering. I can't even explain that enough or say that enough.
What do you mean by self-awareness?
Well, the more awareness you have of yourself, what your triggers are, what it looks like to you physically, mentally, and emotionally to go through something traumatic or to deal with depression and what have you, the more you understand those things, the more you can set yourself up to try and prevent it from happening in the first place, or the more you can kind of like wiggle your way out of the deep, dark spiral. the more you understand yourself, the more you can change the things that aren't working for you, even at like a lighter level, when it's just like, oh, like I really reacted there in that conversation, and that caused the person to be really off put by me. And now there's a struggle between us that we have to work out. It's just like even simple things. The more self-awareness you have, the more you can manage and change what isn't working for you. You can't change what you can't see, right?
Was there a particular pattern or series of thoughts and behaviors that you would have that you actually had to get responsible for, so
Yeah.
you could be aware when this actually shows up for you?
Yeah, I think so. There's something to be said about sort of like our daily thoughts and the pattern of that. But for me, what I had to do is I had to get really far down in the mud, and I had to establish what my core issues were. And the core issues that we carry, because we all have them, are, you know, they kind of branch into different ideas and different verbiage and behaviors and beliefs. But the core, but usually the daily dialogue and stuff that's negative kind of always boils down to these core issues. And so that's what I had to do. I had to figure out what my core issues were. And I mean, we can talk about those if you want, but I find a theme in a lot of people's core issues are feeling unworthy or undeserving, and feeling fundamentally wrong or bad. And those were mine.
Yeah, that's a big one for people, is the whole morality of where they're at in life, or maybe they did something, or they're not doing something. And that's a big thing where people actually will create goals and say they keep wanting to do something, and then they don't do it.
Right.
And then they walk around and just make themselves wrong for having not done it. You know, that's something that I still work on that. You know, for myself, when it comes up, it could be as simple as like, you know, taking my laundry to get done and not doing that, and then having all of these elements actually build up, and we just walk around as big make wrong machines.
Right. I'm not doing enough. I'm not trying hard enough. And that's the other thing is like, if you're a runner, right, and you break your leg and you don't know it, or you don't take care of it, you're not aware of it, and then you're like, all right, well, like my leg hurts, but whatever, and you like keep running the marathon, and you're like struggling, and your like other leg starts to hurt, and your body's starting to break down, and you're like kicking the shit out of yourself because you're like, why can't I run as fast as I used to? Like, I'm just not trying hard enough. And you're pushing yourself and pushing yourself. And sort of there's like this compound pain that you're accumulating in your body. And you know, this is a metaphor for the emotional disposition, but also the physical, because the emotional affects the physical. Like, this is kind of what we're doing with mental health here. We have something traumatic happen to us, or we get into this place of depression, and we're like pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps, and we're wondering why we're not able to not only crush it, but we're wondering why we're not able to just do the bare minimum. And then we're beating ourselves up for that, and we're trying to push through that instead of like looking at what's breaking down the body or breaking down the car part, however you want to describe it. Instead of looking at that thing and managing and fixing that thing, we're just like striving forward and like get into it and pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And it's just like, we're just hurting ourselves more and more and more and adding more compound pain. So like truly, until we get to the core issues of what's really hurting us inside, and where we feel like we've been hurt, and we can learn acceptance and forgiveness for ourselves and for others, until we're able to do that, we are going to continue hurting ourselves.
Yeah. And when we go to that place, you know, building an incredibly successful career, in my experience, not only from, you know, coaching hundreds, if not thousands of people, to my own experience, being crazy successful in life, like I have been in real estate, is often a compensation for something. So when my whole journey started, you know, I was top 25 for all of Canada with Keller Williams, which is now the largest real estate company in the world.
Yeah.
But my life was falling apart. And then there was a colleague in the industry who I won't name, but just went on and did a Facebook Live yesterday sharing the same thing, and how the importance of actually having a self-love practice, and that was her story, but there's lots of different ways in which you can do it, but having that practice to actually love, care for, and nurture yourself, for if you don't, you may build a very successful life.
Yeah.
And I promise most people in those situations that keep going and going and going, there will be a day in which it crashes.
Right.
Because it's all a compensation for something which most often you've talked about is that I'm not enough.
Right. Right.
So
And
then we
that's
go
the
out.
drive point.
Yeah. And we go out in life and we accumulate a lot to show that I'm enough.
Right. To externally. Yeah.
Exactly. So in those instances, like, or even for yourself in your experience, what's your daily practice to have yourself be settled and centered with who you are and where you're at?
That's such a good question. I think that is ever evolving for me. What I know right now, what makes me feel good are, like I said, journaling. Starting my day with journaling is awesome, whether it's freestyle writing, just to kind of get the monkey mind on paper and in its cage. Or there's this book called the 5-Minute Journal. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's so simple. It's like literally it just, I think what I love about it is that it simplifies your day in a way where it's like, if I literally do these 3 tasks, which is super easy to do, even if it's just like I go out and I have a walk today or whatever it is, if you complete those 3 tasks, you feel like you've won your day. And then that small win is a thing that you're carrying over with you to the next day. I mean, it's brilliant. It's so simple. Simplicity. I heard this quote the other day, simplicity is the like biggest form of sophistication or something like that, or the ultimate form of sophistication. I was like, that's brilliant. Anyway, just to plug that journal again, so starting my day like that, having enough time in the morning to reflect and kind of, like you said, take my power back and go like, I am running the show of my day versus, okay, I'm late for this and now like I'm behind and like trying to catch up with yourself. It's like, no, like I'm in control here. That space in the morning kind of allows you to feel that for yourself. Like, I'm in control of my day. I'm winning my day already by like giving myself this time. I love, starting my day by going to the gym. That makes me feel really good if it's not a rest day. So whether that's just be like 30 minutes of cardio or weights or whatever, some sort of movement in the morning. It's like, again, this doesn't have to be so complicated. And making sure, like, these top 3 things, making sure that I am connected with meaningful people, like having meaningful relationships. Those 3 things right now. Oh, and meditation every day. Sorry, I almost forgot the most important thing. So meditation every day as well. Those 4 things are, fundamentally have changed the way that I feel about myself, for sure.
Yeah. And how long have you been meditating? And do you actually see, I know for myself, but I'd love to hear from you. Do you actually see a palpable difference, like black and white difference in who you are for yourself and how your life goes when you meditate versus when you don't?
Yes. So, okay. I've been meditating since I was 13 because my parents both meditate. Like, we weren't religious in my family, but they both practiced different forms of meditation. And so they taught me when I was really, really young. And I stepped onto my first stage at 10. So I was a child performer from 10 to 18. And I've been on stage every year of my life for 21 years. But like when I was a kid was when I performed the most. Like I performed sometimes like 40 shows a summer. And so there was a lot of it was very, very high stress. It was very like, go, 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 go. I had a lot of different fluctuations with anxiety, especially as I got into high school. Like, stage fright was a thing for me. And so my parents were like, this might be able to help. Like, start incorporating this in your life and see how that makes you feel before you go on stage and all that kind of stuff. So that's why I incorporated it so young was, like, thankfully my parents had already known about this and they were already practicing it. And then they just helped me sort of get involved. And then, yeah, it's been something that's been in and out of my life. I can't say that I've meditated every day of my life for, 17 years or whatever. But when I don't meditate, I get really ahead of myself. And it's like all the same patterns that we're talking about, comparing myself to people that I feel are crushing it more than I am. I feel not grounded in my body. And that's a really common experience for people that have struggled with an anxiety disorder. You don't feel grounded in your body. It's just like you're like floating away in a way, but in like a not so fun way. And so like it grounds me in my body from day to day. It just makes me feel like I'm in control, like I'm centered. I mean, there's something to be said about the fact that it triggers the parasympathetic nervous system, and like 99% of people in 2018 in North America are sympathetic dominant. So it's always like this fight, flight, or freeze, sort of like adrenaline driven way of living. And so in order to balance the nervous system, we usually do need to activate the rest, relax, digest, which is the parasympathetic nervous system, which is what meditation elicits. So
Yep.
yeah, for me, like the balance of the nervous system, the balance of me feeling like it's like almost like everything's going to be okay. Now, there's something to be said. I do want to say there's something to be said about when I was struggling with anxiety, like to the worst, I couldn't meditate my way out of an anxiety disorder. Like that's not, or an anxiety attack, I should say. That's not necessarily the purpose of it. Sometimes the purpose of meditation is to show you really uncomfortable things or a storm that's going on inside of you so that you have the power to change it. Sometimes it can calm you down within your anxiety attack, but you're still filled with anxiety. Like it doesn't heal all. It's a really great tool, but I'm certainly not suggesting that like it was the reason that I was able to manage my anxiety. Like I said, it's a multi-pronged approach. Meditation. I was in therapy for 3.5 years. I had a great support system. I had all these amazing things going for me as a wellness coach. Like I was already always active. So I didn't have to like start that from scratch. You know what I mean? So yeah, I just felt like that was an important side note because people often get that confused.
Yeah, they do. And have you ever done Vipassana, the 10-day silent meditation retreat?
I have not.
Okay. So highly recommend it to anyone watching, anybody listening, and even to you, Janey. Because one of the key distinctions that you walk away with is the design of human being.
Mm-hmm.
And the design of human being is the design to do two things, or one of two things, I should say, at any given moment: craving or aversion. So we're always either craving money, fame, success, more, the car, the partner, food, whatever that may be, or we're looking to avert, pain, threat, humiliation, anything like that. And I've found I did that back in 2014, and I will absolutely do it again. But I think it speaks to what you're talking about is you've gone on to, see that discovery for yourself in a way in which you notice a very, very clear difference from when you're meditating to when you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get addicted to feeling good.
Yeah, that's true. You do. You definitely do. Can I ask a question? When you did that, now I'm the interviewer. When you did your 2014 Vipassana, was that before you had sort of your breaking moment and went through your version of depression and that? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, well, what I would refer to as depression and anxiety, I dealt with that ever since I was a kid. And I've done a lot of work around childhood imprint work, around different courses. So I've been able to actually get responsible for that for myself.
Mm-hmm.
But my real transformation moment began in the latter part of 2015. It started in December 2015. Once I, became aware that I was top 25 in Canada with Keller Williams, everybody wanted to take me out for dinner.
Right.
Everyone wanted to congratulate me, but I was completely crushed and decimated inside. Like I was just, it's not what I wanted. Yes, I like, the money and the success that comes along with it, but what it actually took to get there, that was one of a few things that added to me actually being where I am today.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. The reason I asked that was because So like, I always say this. So people in general, like especially strength and conditioning coaches that don't really know the difference between yoga that's designed specifically for athletes, which is what yoga is, and then just any other type of yoga, you always hear people say like, yoga is so good for you. And it's like, actually, the right type of yoga is good for you or can be good for you. So for example, if you're depressed, yin and like restorative yoga might not be the best for you because you're already heavy. You're already feeling weighted and alone, and like just this fog is like you kind of need something that invigorates you, actually, like ashtanga or power. But if you have an anxiety disorder and you go into a hot yoga room and you do an ashtanga class, that can actually just induce your anxiety because there's not as much oxygen in the room. You're overheating, you're doing something very, very fast. Like, I mean, that's all the same things that happens when you have an anxiety attack. So just understanding, like, again, depending on where you are in the continuum, this is why self-awareness is so important. Can kind of differentiate like when the right type of yoga is good for you. Same with meditation. The reason I was asking that is because there has been so many amazing experiences that I've heard from people in this silent retreat. And I actually lost my voice back in 2012 for like the better part of a year. And I kind of got to experience like what that was like, not being able to speak or use my voice or teach with it or lead or sing. Like, I mean, that was just like an insane experience. And
Yeah.
and I saw the value in that time. But if I had done something like that 1 year later, when I like really started to hit like bottom out, it would have actually made it worse for me because I would have been too alone with the bottom of the ocean where I was kind of sitting. Do you know what I mean? So like, I was just curious to know kind of at what point it's so different for every single person depending on where they're at. Like there's no one size fits all. So it's just interesting to kind of hear like when that was valuable, when it might not be, like that kind of thing.
Like something like Vipassana, I think will always be available, will always be valuable. And I say that because you literally turn your life off for 12 days.
Yeah.
You go there on day one, you start your meditation that night, then you get
Mm-hmm.
into the course on day two, you finish on day 11. So it's 10 days of 14 days of meditation per day.
Mm-hmm.
And then you leave on the 12th day. So, Vipassana is probably, and I don't know this is truth, but I could easily assert it, that it's one of, if not the oldest form of personal development in the world. Like meditation has been around for
Yep.
thousands of years, and Vipassana has been around for over 2,500 years.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think,
Go ahead.
go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just, my like, I guess point in sort of asking you that and just inquiring a little bit further is like for two reasons. One, um, there's this guy named, oh man, I always forget his name. It's too bad, but because I've forgotten it again. But there's this man who was a Westerner, and he was living the Western life, and he went and studied with the Buddhist monks for like 12 years and then came back, and he has like a whole practice now, and he's coaching people, and I got to get his name. I'll have to get his name, and you can like link it in whatever feed
Sure.
that's going to be posted on. But basically his whole philosophy is like, we're Westerners, so we need Western medicine. And what's happening is Eastern medicine is coming into the West, and it's being super, super helpful for us. But we as Westerners are kind of assuming that because Easterners use Eastern medicine, and that's like, they don't necessarily, like psychotherapy isn't as prominent in the East as it is in the West. We're kind of assuming that that'll work for us too. But like, for example, if someone hasn't worked out their trauma and they sit with themselves for 12 days alone, all they're going to be doing is perpetuating the fear and anxiety around the things that they haven't come to learn to deal with yet. But for someone like you, before, sort of like that deep dive that you took in 2015, like that whole beginning of the transformation, like that was valuable to you at that time because that's what you needed, and you weren't suffocating you weren't like suffocated by your demons. And same with me, like when I lost my voice at that time in my life, I was only suffocated by like surface demons, like the deeper ones hadn't come out yet. So that was actually like a valuable experience. But my point in all of it was just like understanding and being humble with, like, for all of us, just this like idea of certain things are good sometimes for some people, depending on their continuum, and sometimes they're not. But it's interesting to me, like when it is valuable for somebody and when it isn't, because that's what I do. I mean, I coach leaders, and I understand when something could be valuable, when it couldn't be, so that I can understand how to help people with it and guide them into like what could transform their lives. You know what I mean?
I certainly do.
Yeah.
Next question. What do you want your legacy to be?
Service to others.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how would you actually be of service to others? Like if people look back and remember Janey B. World.
However they want to. I mean, it could be a homeless man on the street that was like, wow, she really looked in my eyes when she said hello. It could be a client that found my program, changed their lives, and was really receptive to it. It could be someone that heard one of my songs and said, hey, like it really felt like you wrote that song about me. I mean, like it's however they want to be helped and however they can be helped. The ways that I am capable of helping at this time are through my performance mindset program. It's through my music. It's through my speaking on stage. It's through interviews. It's through any way that I can help, Yeah, I don't think there's limitations. I don't think there's like a lid on it. It's like, I'm going to give you what I can give you. And then if you're helped by it, amazing. If you're not, then all good, but that's what I truly believe my purpose is service to others. I feel like that's all of our purposes at the end of the day, is to help other people grow, and we're all like healing together. So.
Absolutely. And then how would you define health?
I would define health by optimal health to me is feeling good. So you can have the best body in the world. You can have the most money in the world. You can have like the sexiest partner, sexiest body, whatever it is. Like you can have all the things that you think mean health. But if you don't actually feel good inside, if you're not actually happy or like experiencing some kind of joy or inner peace, then that's not optimal health. So optimal health is only optimal if you feel good. And that's how I would describe optimal health.
Awesome. All right. You ready for a few rapid fires?
Sure.
Lightning round?
Sure.
What's your morning routine, or do you even have one?
Well, yeah, like I said before, I get up and I journal. And then usually I go to the kitchen and I make myself some mushroom coffee because I'm really addicted to Four Sigmatic right now. And then I'll hit the gym and come back and work on my business. That's
And
the morning.
what business is that?
The performance mindset program. So I have an online course that helps leaders and people that want to lead overcome and manage anxiety in their personal and professional lives, and build confidence and authenticity, and be able to like essentially become powerful and impactful for whoever it is that they want to lead.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What are you reading right now?
I'm about to read Captivate by Vanessa Van Edwards.
Okay.
Yeah. She's a badass.
Is she?
Yeah.
All right. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
What's something totally badass about you that most people don't know?
Oh, man.
Give us a good one.
Oh, my God. I'm actually really shy. And I guess the reason that I say that that's badass is because I've found a way to overcome that, to break through that, to like still give my heart and still be brave in my shyness. But yeah, I'm like actually pretty shy, especially when it's like a face-to-face thing.
I would have no idea.
Nobody would.
No, yeah. Not at all.
I think it might be just like maybe introverted, extrovert. You know what I mean? Like maybe just one of like part of that. I don't know. But yeah, like I can be really, really bashful.
Okay. And then last question is, how do you define entrepreneurialism for yourself?
I guess it's like, I don't know if this is like what you're asking, but for me, I look at it like it's my version of the Olympics, like building my business and even just overcoming and managing my anxiety and my bashfulness or whatever. Like that's my version of being an Olympic athlete. That's my Olympics. That's what I train for every day. That's what I build my mindset around, So entrepreneurialism is to me, it's like a different type of Olympics.
It certainly is.
Yeah.
And then Janey, if people want to get in touch with you, where's the best place that they could find you? And tell us a little bit about your program as well.
Yeah. So people want to get in touch with me, they can find me on Instagram. So Janey B World, or Fierce Academy, spelled with an FEARCE. My website is janeybrown.com. And that's where my performance mindset program is. The performance mindset program is about 5 weeks long. Right now, what's included, because it's going to change, is sort of like each week you get a 10-page PDF ebook, and then you get a free coaching call with me. And there's a bunch of exercises and journaling and meditations and different mindfulness exercises that you work through to build self-empowerment and confidence, and to get to know yourself better. Self-awareness is everything. Yeah, it's I would say like it's more on the EQ side of things. Like you really are starting to develop this emotional intelligence for yourself and for others, and that in and of itself, in a personal manner, will transfer into your professional life. So who you are on the stage or in the courtroom or in the boardroom is the same person that you are outside of that environment. So we're looking at that person and getting them to be confident and getting them to be happy and achieve their optimal health. And then that's transferring into the professional environment. So that's what the performance mindset program is.
Awesome. Well, Janey, look, thanks so much for being here today. I got tons of value for myself and for the viewers and listeners. I hope you did the same. And again, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
There you go. So we didn't really do the intro, but that's okay, because I'm going to do an intro beforehand.
Okay.
On a better camera with, lights and better quality and all that stuff. So then we can just jump right into it then, unless you actually want to do an intro with me, which we can stop, do that, and I can cut it to the front.
Yeah, we can do that. Like whatever works for you. If that's easier for editing, then we can do that.
I'm cool with just with what we've done.
Okay. Well, yeah, it's whatever you want, like at the end of the day. If you want to, like, so in the middle there, when we were talking about like Vipassana and stuff, I hope I wasn't like, I hope I wasn't like coming across as like butting like your like practice or whatever. I was truly just intrigued to understand like at what point in your life you did that, because it's like, it doesn't matter how many clients I work with. It's like someone always has a devil's advocate thing to say about the things that I've found helpful, or that I've had, like my other clients have found helpful. Someone's always like comes in with like it's a humbling experiencing as a coach, because you're like, holy shit, there is no answer. It's like everybody's answer is different depending on where they're at in their life. So for me asking you that, I hope it didn't come off as like challenging you and what you had to say, because I was just
not at all. And
okay, cool.
I get challenged every single day when I lead my program at Landmark, and I got nothing going on about it. And the one thing I would say though is Vipassana really where anybody's at, is like hugely powerful, whether it's dealing with trauma, whether they're not, like, because it literally turns life off for 10 days and you just get to go and be and slow the fuck down.
Yeah.
And
I do see the value in it for sure. I hope that came across.
No, of course, no, it was great.
Okay, cool.
It was great.
Good.
And the other part, I did a lot of very deep childhood work.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. I'm not going to say it is the answer, and it is the driver.
Yeah.
For people's lives.
I agree with that. I do agree with that. Like what happens in childhood stays with you forever.
Whether you have a mom or dad doesn't, look, I have no clue what it is to have parents.
Right.
I have mom and I have a dad he passed away when I was 16. So all my buddies who grew up with parents, like, I actually can't understand what that is as an experience, because I've never had it. Right. So it was probably about 18 months. I worked with an intuitive therapist and spiritual coach, and worked through identifying all of these childhood imprints. And by no means did I scrape everything out. Like, you're kidding. But there is another course that I'm going to do at some point called the Hoffman process, which is 7 days, all about your parents.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's Jen Hoffman, who I met at an event, I don't know, last October or something, last summer.
Her name sounds familiar, actually.
Yeah, she's nothing short of lovely, and
Yeah.
their program is incredibly healing and powerful.
Wow, that's cool. That's really cool. Yeah, I really like am pretty strong on that as well. I mean, just what I've learned in psychotherapy, like there is just so much to be said about dealing with, and I think people get defensive about this because they're like, well, I don't want to open old wounds and I don't want to blame. And it's like, okay, sometimes like opening an old wound to clear the dirt out is more valuable than like sewing it up with like sticks and rocks and shit in there still. Like
if you don't go and pull out the root,
yeah,
you will never, ever, ever
yeah,
transcend the issue.
yeah.
You may get more, better, and different, but unless you get to the source of it,
Yes.
good fucking luck.
Yeah, totally.
Have
And that's
fun.
totally, that's what I was saying about core issues. Like that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like at the end of the day, if you don't get to the root of your fears and the root of your pain and the root of your core issue, like it's.
Let's do a bonus round right now on this topic, and we're going to add it right at the end. All right, so Janey and I are back, and we just got into a bit of a conversation around a few things that her and I are both incredibly passionate about, and we're talking about getting to the source of the issue.
Yeah.
And what I was talking about is I've done a lot of childhood imprint work around my upbringing, and the conversation just totally flared up in a great way. And I think there's a lot of value for all of you in this. And that is, unless you and we all go to work on getting to the source of why life isn't working, or the source of why we treat ourselves the way we do with alcohol, food, working too much, whatever that may be for you, we got to get to the source of it. And a big access to that, if not the access, is going to work on your childhood.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I mean, the brain was framed and developed in your childhood. So it's kind of silly to think that that wouldn't affect the way that we are as adults. I mean, like that's how it was developed. If you get a scrape or like a cut on your skin, there is a scar there forever if it's deep enough. You know what I mean? So it's the same with the way the brain works, the way the brain was formed. If there's trauma there, if there's enough sadness, if there's enough, improper thinking patterns or belief systems or whatever. I mean, improper meaning like things that are harmful or hurtful to you. Then that's going to carry over until you kind of go back and go, okay, well, where did this come from? Why do I have it? And it's not to say that you have to blame your parents or blame what happened in your childhood and sort of say like, this is the root of all evil, like screw these people. It's about looking at it, holding the space for the fact that they're imperfect too, just like you. We're all human and we're all actually equal. And going like, yeah, they made mistakes and it really like effed me up. And now it's my turn to heal that and deal with that. It's nobody else's responsibility now but mine. So you can hold the space for the ways that you were hurt or the ways that you hurt others and say like, that was, an example of people being human, and humans are whole people with like flaws and all. And like, now it's up to me to do the work to heal that. And it seems unfair to some people. Like, it's like, well, they did this to me. Like, and it's like, but that's right. They did. And it was unfair. But the problem is that they can't fix it. Even if they wanted to, they couldn't fix it. It is so on us to be able to heal ourselves and forgive those and forgive ourselves and accept those that hurt us and accept ourselves. Like there's just no other answer. So it's like, you can be mad about it all you want and you can think that it's unfair all you want, but you're the only one with the solution. And you're the only one with the unconditional self-love that you are seeking every single place externally.
And on that point, look at who's the one who's suffering. If it's you, if it's me, if it's other people, the opportunity is on us and the responsibility is on us to go seek out the resources, the coaching, the books, I'm a huge proponent of experiential learning, because am I going to heal my entire childhood from a book? No, that is not happening.
No.
It's a
multi-pronged approach.
It is, right? And there are lots of really incredible books that can actually support us, but going and doing like the real deal work to uproot what's in the way, to get that out of the way so you can actually go live your life and end the suffering.
Right.
And just give up being right about what happened.
Right. Oh man, that's so huge. Totally. It makes no sense to bandage over a wound when there's still dirt inside of it. It's like, I get the understanding of like, it's uncomfortable to reopen wounds and stuff for sure. But it's like, sometimes you have to get the dirt out, and then you can actually heal it properly. And yes, there will always be a scar there. Yes, sometimes that scar will hurt even, but it doesn't mean that it'll take you down anymore necessarily once you've healed. And I think it's also worth mentioning that even people who were raised in other people's eyes, like perfectly, like even if they had like a great childhood and there wasn't trauma there and there wasn't hurt and pain, they have complexes too. Like I had a client who, I mean, everything like was pretty great on the outside, and actually the pressure of her feeling like she needed to be the good girl was the thing that took her down in the end. And like there was so much love there in the family and so much respect and all that, but like everybody, like no one gets out of childhood unscathed, I think is the biggest point with that. So everybody has something, some trigger point, some root that they need to pull out that is affecting them today. And it kind of usually comes back to childhood.
Yeah. I don't know what else there's really nothing else to say. Like, this is like the real deal part of the conversation.
Yeah.
It's not like the whole thing hasn't been, but I often say to people that I work with, if there's no resistance, there's nothing to transcend and transform. If there is resistance, which could be anxiety, depression, worry, fear, then that's an opportunity to transform and transcend something.
Right.
Or if there's nothing there,
that's right. That's right.
It's like me telling you to go be a pilot. You're like, I don't want to do that. You have zero resistance to it.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
But
like
the moment,
there's no fear. Yeah.
Right. But the moment someone touches on a hidden pattern from your childhood or when you were young, or a past career situation or a former partner, and that just stings.
Yes.
And then there's a reaction to that.
Yes.
That is an opportunity to get responsible and transform that or transcend it and go do the work.
So huge.
And there's like tons of resources. Reach out to me, reach out to Janey. There are tons and tons and tons of valuable resources for you to actually get to the source of what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And I don't got anything else on this topic. I think we really opened the box on this one.
Yeah.
And
it's really a whole other podcast.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? We'll do it another time.
Right. Totally.
Cool. All right, Janey, thanks so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. And I hope this has been of value to everybody, to our viewers and listeners. We'll catch you next week.